Reminds me a lot of the old '90s Spider-Man cartoon. They had that storyline where Spider-Man team up with some different Spider-Mans from different universes. It was kind of like the precursor to Spider-Verse, and they had a Spider-Man there that had defeated Doc Ock and took his arms as like a prize or whatever, and he had mechanical arms. Kind of reminds me of that a little bit, so that was cool. Um, but yeah, it's interesting. I like this. I do actually kind of like this Spider-Man because he's really cocky. I mean, our Spider-Man's cocky too, but this one's like really condescending, cocky, like arrogant. He's very intelligent and he's very calculating and he's very short of himself. And it was kind of enjoyable to read him because he was just trash mouthing the villains and like normal Spider-Man does, but in much more of a like smart ass way than what Peter would normally do. Peter makes it fun. This guy just insults him straight up, which is still fun to the reader, but it's a little different. Um, I did enjoy it. Like he's kind of got. He's a good guy, I guess. Like he's helping people, he's saving people, but he's not as morally conscious as Spider-Man as our Spider-Man is. Like he's willing to let the villains die. If they if that's the main way he can save the day. And it's very interesting how he works. Hello, everybody. Sawyer's Reviews, and I'm here with my review for Superior Spider-Man #1. This is a new book. It came out this week, and it's kind of interesting. It's a little bit different than normal Spider-Man I'm used to. But before I get into that too much, I do want to apologize for not being active on this channel, and it's been probably like a month or two since I've really been putting out anything, especially anything comic book related. Last few things I put out were movie related. I was just trying different things out. Kind of got burnt out a little bit on comics for a little bit. I had to back away from it. I'm back though. I'm gonna try to stay active and put out some videos for you guys. Most of you guys sticked around with me, and I do appreciate that. Appreciate everything you guys follow me and everything, and like, comment, all that good stuff. So let's get back to the comic book. This is Superior Spider-Man, which I was not really familiar with before this. But apparently, I don't know if I'm assuming it's an alternate timeline, but part of the Spider-Verse or whatnot. I'm not very well versed in all that stuff, but basically, this is Otto Octavius is a Spider-Man in this world, and he's got like instead of like the tentacles, he's got like these kind of like spider arms that come out. They're like but they're basically his tentacles. They do the same functionality, and he's got the spider webs and all Spider-Man's power. So he's basically best of both worlds. And he's not like he doesn't look like the Otto Octavius we're used to because it's Otto Octavius made a clone. He made like a clone body that's like a mixture of his old body with like DNA from Peter Parker. So it's like a mixture of the two people. And so he has this kind of like slim, swab, kind of like almost like a Bruce Wayne looking kind of body that he possesses. And he's this high rolling like professor, scientist that's got a new idea, and it's pretty interesting actually. I mean, I like the change in pace for the story. I think it works pretty well. We start the issue off with Superior Spider-Man, as he calls himself, and he calls himself this a lot. It's actually really annoying that he calls himself by the third person over and over and over. But the first villain we see him fighting is one of the greatest villains that Marvel's ever conceived, a mastermind, very powerful, very cunning, and very elegant villain. I'm just fucking with you. He fights Stiltman. I mean, come on. Of all the characters to bring into the story, Stiltman, really? And then they make Stiltman sound like he's been a Spider-Man villain for years, which he might have been, but I've always known him as a Daredevil villain from like the 60s and 70s. But anyway, Stiltman is fighting the Superior Spider-Man. They fight for a good portion of the beginning of the issue. That is one thing about the issue that I like. It's very, very I don't know how to really put it, but it's formatted very well. Like it's got a clear first act, middle act, and end act. Like it's there's basically only three things that really happen in this book, and you're just reading those three things unfold. And it's kind of cool how they do it. It's not as they don't jump to a bunch of different scenes and backdrops. It's very much a focused story for the most part. And I like that. The art's pretty good. Not like the hugest. I mean, it's nothing really wrong with it. I think Stiltman is drawn a little weird, but I really like the way Spider-Man is drawn. The costume looks good. It's a very interesting design for the costume too. The people are drawn perfectly fine. I didn't have too much problem with the art. The art's fine. It's not my favorite in the world, but it's not bad by any means. And then the battle includes, with a classic kind of Spider-Man fashion, of course, Spider-Man or Doc Ock, he's trying to get to like a really important banquet or whatever, or presentation or something that he has to do, but he's running out of time while he's fighting Stiltman, so he's trying to juggle, defeating Stiltman and saving the day while also getting to his personal life. And so then he makes this very calculated risk, where he basically throws, destroys Stiltman's legs in midair, so Stiltman's falling. Then he catches Stiltman and at the very last second possible, and it's actually really cool because Stiltman's all complaining. He's like, "Man, if you would have calculated that 1 second off, I would have died. You would have killed me." And Doc Ock's like, "I don't miscalculate, and even if I did, the problem would still be solved." Like, he's really, really brutal in that scene, like real savage. And that's what I was talking about earlier, with the idea that this Spider-Man is not the most morally conscious character. Like, he was perfectly fine with letting Stiltman die if that meant he got to his presentation quicker and the day was saved. But he ends up, he doesn't end up doing that, but he would have did that. Like, he was fine with that possible conclusion. Then we get to the second act, which is quite honestly a huge, huge snore fest. I mean, I like the pacing. It works like on paper, but when you have a cool action sequence in the beginning of the book, which is cool and it's engaging, and then you go to this really boring like science presentation where a bunch of science mumbo jumbo is being said. It's not the easiest thing to follow. The word bubbles are huge. There's lots of things being said. There's lots of reading being done. It just kind of really threw me off of the excitement. It really dumbed it down for me. That became extremely boring, and it goes on a little too long. Like, I think it went on for like 6 or 7 pages of this. It's a decent portion of the book, and I really just that was my biggest negative with the book, is that it just takes too long with this whole scene. Then we get to the third act, which is it's another kind of slower story-driven scene or sequence, but it's a bit better. This one basically deals with Otto Octavius going to talk to this professor or this scientist woman or whatever that's in charge of the school or whatnot, or the institution that he works at, and she doesn't. He thinks that nobody knows he's Otto Octavius, but she's figured it out. She's figured out that he's a clone of Peter and Otto. I don't know how she figures that out. I mean, logically, but she does. And apparently she remembers, Otto Octavius being this horrible person, and she doesn't believe that he's rehabilitated, which apparently he has, for the most part. And she's basically threatening to send him, turn him over to police and all this. And Otto's like, "Come on, I'm not that guy anymore. I'm not going to kill you. I'm not going to hurt you. I'm trying to help people." But she doesn't believe it. And then she kind of basically says that, "Do you really think I'm dumb enough to confront you without some kind of protection?" And then she brings in this robot, which is actually really cool because this is a throwback. I don't know if the robot's been appearing in recent comics, but this is a robot that I've always seen like one time, way back in the Silver Age. Like, I think it's Spider-Man number 8 or 9 or something. It was one of the early issues that this robot appeared. It was a robot that somebody in the school made, probably the same woman. I don't really remember. But it was really cool Steve Ditko design, which I always really enjoyed. So that was a really cool thing to see. I wasn't expecting it. It was a really cool little bit of I don't know, fan service or nostalgia or whatever. So that was cool. But you think we think Otto's going to have to fight his way through the robot, but that doesn't happen because I don't really want to give away the end of the book, but something happens. Something's happening in the city, and it requires Spider-Man's attention. And they see it on the news because there's a news like a TV or whatever in the room. So she basically realizes that the city needs Spider-Man. So she lets him go, and she's like, "Go, I know you need to go do it." And he's like, "Thank you." And he runs out, taking his shirt off in the classic Superman or Spider-Man fashion, putting the costume on as he's running out the building, which was pretty cool. Another kind of iconic, nostalgic thing to see there. And then the book ends with kind of a little cliffhanger with this new threat popping up, which is a threat that Marvel fans will be familiar with, which is interesting. I don't want to get too much into that. I always try to leave at least something to be surprised by if you actually buy the book. So with that being said, all in all, I really did enjoy this book. I didn't know anything about Superior Spider-Man or what's going on in the current Spider-Man lore, but that didn't really hurt me that bad. I mean, I think I might have picked up on a few things easier if I would have read it, but overall, I don't think you really need to. It seems like a decent enough jumping point. And I really did like the art. I enjoyed the story. I really like the character and the concept of Otto Octavius being Spider-Man. It's really cool to me, and I really do enjoy how he portrays the character in the mantle. So that's pretty cool. If I had to point out some flaws, I would say that I wasn't a fan of the repetitive, condescending dialogue of Otto Octavius talking about himself in the third person, talking about how intelligent, how powerful, how better he is in Spider-Man. I understand that's kind of like Otto's character. Otto's always been a very cocky and self-centered character that thinks himself higher than everybody else. But it just got annoying as the reader to keep reading about it over and over in such a quick succession. It was like 4 times within the same like half of the book, so that was annoying. And the other thing I didn't really like about the book was the fact that the overall pacing left something to be desired. Like I said earlier in the video, that really long stretch of scenes or whatever of Otto Octavius just talking at a conference was really boring. Took me out of the book. I found myself actually skipping over some of the dialogue just to get to the next part of the book because it was so boring. Have you guys ever done that? Just like not read all the dialogue because you just couldn't get into it and you wanted to get the next scene? So yeah, overall, it's a good book, really solid book. Those are my complaints overall, but I did really enjoy it, and you should give it a chance.